Happy Thursday, everybody. Anthony Cosenza here, joined by John Sheeran. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and I know the Bengals have been busy with a lot of pre-draft stuff. We've been busy at Cincy Jungle. John's been busy at A to Z Sports, and we have been busy here on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel and the Orange and Black Insider. Anthony, John, what's going on, bud? We've got a couple things to get to today as we break down some things going into the draft.
Yeah, we do, man. It's just 1 week away from the drafts. I'm ready for it before my mind just rapidly, unschedulably disassembles.
The draft weekend for me is always a tricky one because I have like 3 or 4 family birthdays on that fall on those days every year, and so I'm like, oh man, like last year when we were at the draft, I had to miss a couple of family birthday things that I was there. I made it back for one, but anyway, I always got to kind of navigate that when I really truly just want to sit and engulf myself in draft coverage for the better part of 3 days. And of course, we'll be bringing you all kinds of different stuff on our channel, our program, and of course on cincyjungle.com. I know John's going to be killing it over at A to Z Sports as well. So we'll be bringing you a lot of different stuff. We'll be collaborating with other podcasts. We'll be bringing on special guests, breaking down the picks, all kinds of different things for you there. Again, if you're new here, welcome. We had some nice comments from some people that we hadn't heard from before on some of our videos. We appreciate you if you're a new subscriber, and if you want to do that, you can subscribe on the show button on the, I guess it would be your left, my right hand side of the screen, or I guess your right hand side of the screen. You can click the show icon to subscribe, click the bell to be notified when new content is available, when we go live. That is for YouTube, of course. If you like the Facebook stuff, you can give a thumbs up on the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. Join about 80,000 plus people there. And then, of course, we stream on Twitter as well for the live shows. And if you can't catch us, because I know sometimes we try and keep it on the same night, same time. Sometimes our schedules get a little wonky. If you can't catch us for the live stuff, then you got to get it afterward on your favorite audio platform: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We are there along with 3 and Out, Coach Speak, Chalk Talk with Matt Minnick, and of course, Bengal Jim and Friends talking football. So we're going to do a little bit of a different format tonight, a little bit of a different show. We usually kind of dive into news and do a state your case or, kind of some different things. We're doing some stuff that we've done before, but we're just hitting the draft heavy this week. We've got 2 draft profiles to get to, 2 guys that I think are going to be intriguing to the Bengals for a variety of reasons, just a matter of when in the draft. And of course, we're going to do a mock draft for you as well. We try not to over inundate with our mock drafts, but we've got another one we're going to do. It's our second edition. We'll probably do one more next week. John and I will talk about that, but we'll probably do one more next week as a final one before the draft, and then we'll get into draft coverage as the weekend unfolds next weekend. So let's get to it. John, if you're ready, I was going to start defense first, unless you want to start with offense. I think based on the show picture that we have, it's not going to be much of a surprise, so we can start offense if you want to go with him. Up to you. You flip the coin in your mind's eye and tell me which one you want to go with first.
I'm going to go the pre-2022 Bengals route and start with defense first.
Defense. Okay. So I started doing some mock drafts and stuff, and this guy started popping up a while ago, months ago, kind of in the later rounds. And I'm going, let me just look into this guy here. So the Bengals are in need of an interior defensive lineman, namely a 3-tech, one that can get after the passer, obviously help out in the run game too, but maybe get those rotational snaps in there and have effective rotational snaps. I think that's why most people are enamored with Kalijah Cansey, the athletic profile, the production, etc. But there may be, I hate saying poor man's version, but there may be a guy that could be had later in the draft, the middle rounds of the draft, from a big school. He's got some question marks, but he tested really well, and he plays a position. He's a versatile guy, and he's a guy that I think the Bengals could look at in the middle rounds. Now, who is it that to whom am I referring, John Sheeran? And that is Jalen Redmond, the interior defensive lineman from Oklahoma. And here's the profile popping up for everybody here. I will full screen this for everybody as we get started here. So, who is this guy? Some of you may ask. Some of you may know already who he is, but uh, he is a guy who's played a little bit of edge, a little bit of interior. He's 6'2, 291. He is older. He's 24, just turned 24 in March. He's a redshirt senior. There are reasons for that. He did have a 4.81 40-yard dash. My understanding is that was the second best for interior defensive lineman at the combine. And the arm length, not long, 32 and 5/8 inches, John, but over 2 inches, I believe, or at 2 inches longer than Kalijah Cansey, a guy that a lot of Bengals fans like. So here's some of the things. The numbers aren't eye-popping, but 71 total tackles in his career, 23 last year. Tackles for loss. This is a good number here, 31.5, especially with some time being missed. I'll talk about that in a little bit. 10 last year, 14 total sacks from the outside, from the inside, 4 last year, primarily inside. Passes defended 6. He had 4 of those last year. That's a good number. Forced fumbles, only 1 in his career, none last year. 2 fumble recoveries, none last year. And we have a fun clip in a little bit about one of those fumble recoveries in just a second. So this is a guy, John, that I think, middle of the rounds, he tested well, and I'll show the RAS later. Here he is. Here, coming in, does a nice spin move off I believe it was the guard there, makes the tackle off the quarterback who was running the ball. And then here he is. He does a lot of this stuff, the loop around and find the crease to get in there. I've noticed that on tape. Here he is off the edge there, beats the guy off the edge, off the right tackle spot, gets in there. We've slowed this one down for you against the run here. Kind of pushes against the lineman there, and then comes in, makes the tackle for loss there. Nice play, and I believe that was a forced fumble. And then you see here, kind of fills the hole, sheds off the block, makes the tackle for loss as he's getting pulled to the ground by the Kansas State offensive lineman. We've slowed a lot of these down for you here. And then you see here, nice move laterally. He got a little help there from, I believe, a linebacker, but nice move laterally to make a play. This is a tackle for loss. Again, kind of splits the blocks, makes a nice tackle for loss in between there. And then this is the fun one here. This is everybody's hero from last year, Brock Purdy. Ball gets knocked out, and then look at him scoop. Outrunning big guys, but, he's moving for a big dude, right? He's moving. He takes it to the house. So that's the nice fumble recovery that I told you about earlier. You see that, there's 2 different RAS scores here. The first one I'm starting with is the defensive end. If you look at him as a defensive end, only 7.72. Good weight, good bench press, good vertical, but the rest is kind of good, okay. Total RAS score as a defensive end, 7.72. Look at this one as an interior defensive lineman. You see there the poor is the size, but look at the speed grade, elite. Composite agility grade, great. Composite explosion grade, elite. So 9.68, it was the earlier testing, but he's still known to be around that number for the RAS score as an interior defensive lineman. So there's a big upside with that going forward. Now, why isn't this guy being talked about a lot? We talked about the age, and the reason why I'm going to start kind of down at the bottom of these little hash marks here. Health and age concerns. There were some blood clot issues, I think, early in his career. He took a year off of COVID because of the blood clot stuff, and he just kind of wanted to stay away from football there. So he's kind of a super senior. And so there's a little bit of, he has some missed time besides that. So, there's a little bit of concern there, but he's got versatility. You can see there, played off the edge, played at 3 tech. Is he a tweener? Can he stand up to NFL size and talent regularly? He still has shorter arm length overall, but is longer than Cansey. And I'm going to show you something in just a second. Really good block shedder on tape as well. So those are some of the things that I saw from him. And before I get your take on this guy, John, I hate to do this to the poor kid because I don't like to compare to all-time greats and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to show you something. I wish I could side-by-side these, but I'm going to do this here. This is just a snapshot thing on NFL.com of Jalen Redmond's prospect profile. You see the grade, average backup or special teamer is kind of what they tag him at this point in time. You see the size, 6'2", 291, the arms, 32 5/8 inch, hand 10 and 1 1/8. You see the production a little low. The defensive tackle rank puts him at 8th. Look at the athleticism score, though, puts him at 3rd for the position at the combine, and then the total score of 75. So you look at the next gen stats breakdown along with the height, weight, all those measurables there. And I want to pull this guy up next to it as comparison because there are comparisons, and this guy carved out a Hall of Fame career and was drafted in the 4th round, and that is Mr. Geno Atkins.
Jesus Christ.
So I know I hate to do it, but look, 6'1", 293, the arms 32 inches, hands smaller. You see the similar production score. The production score wasn't there. It was 11th for that class, 2010 combine. But look at the athleticism score. He was tops defensive tackle rank at the combine for that. So you look at that, and then you see here the total score. So look, I'm not saying he's Geno Atkins. I'm not saying that's what you need to expect or anything like that. But there are similarities here. And what my point in bringing that up is Geno Atkins was one of the top interior defensive tackles of his generation. He was a 4th round pick, and there are some measurable stuff that are similar. There's maybe some tape stuff that's similar here. So I want to put all of that into context, and I want to give, now that you've kind of seen a little bit, heard a little bit about this guy, I'm sure you know a bit about him. Anyway, John, I would love to hear your take on him.
Yeah, when I was putting together like fits for what the Bengals, like if you were to identify their needs and where they're likely to take each position in the draft, Jalen Redmond popped up as like that ideal development 3 technique to be found somewhere in the middle of the draft. The reason why I struggle with, like, I understand like the Geno comp, and obviously it's not a perfect comp by any means, but the reason why I feel like it would be harder for him to carve out like a long-term starter career is there are definite issues with production. Like he was 12th percentile in solo tackle market share at Oklahoma. The pass rushing production and just the overall backfield production was there. I believe PFF charted him with an average depth of tackle of negative 0.4 yards, which means
a lot of tackles for loss and stuff. Yeah,
he was getting into the backfield, and as we saw with those highlights, and by far, I think next to Adibarwe from Northwestern, the best overall athlete in this entire class of defensive tackles. He was above the 93rd percentile in every single one of explosion, speed, and flexibility for his size. It just hurts when you don't have a strong production profile and you're already 24 coming into the NFL. And those are the reasons why he won't be drafted until at earliest round 4. But if you're in the later part of round 4 and you've knocked it out of the park so far with your 3 other picks, I could definitely see the argument to take Redmond at that point. I think you might be able to get him a little bit later just because circumstances that weren't in his control. Obviously, the COVID year really hurt him, and entering the league at such an old age, like this is Rennell Wren almost, because Rennell Wren was a great athlete coming out of Arizona State, but he was also 23, 24, and he was also not that productive at Arizona State. So there are similar positives and negatives from past Bengals that can kind of be attributed to Redmond here, and that's why he will be a 3rd round pick. But if you want to bank on the athleticism as being just a rotational guy to start, and if he's anything more than that, that's phenomenal. Like I'm okay with that bet, but the expectations are definitely tempered.
So you make a really good point about the production stuff, and obviously that there's things about that are concerning. My counter argument to that, though, is he didn't really. While it's an asset that he played some edge stuff and he played interior and he moved to different spots inside and it showed flashes at each spot, he never really found kind of a true home and didn't really, have a specific position for, say, like 2 full years. So we talked about DTR last week where it was like he's a 5-year guy. Finally, when Chip Kelly got there, you started to see the big strides and all of that. Well, here it kind of is also a little bit like, well, did he really have a true fair shot because he was moved around so much? That's where you kind of go, well, if you just kind of played him, had he bulked up maybe, as a sophomore, as a junior in his final 2 years, you say, hey, bulk up a little bit. You're going to be a 3 tech. You're going to be right inside, and let's coach you up there. Maybe the production would have shot up a little bit more instead of kind of moving him around so much. But that's what the defense needed, and he had the skill set to be able to do some stuff off the edge, move around along the defensive line. So he's a guy I like. I think there's I think if you get him day 3, maybe early-ish, middle-ish day 3, I think there's a lot of value there. And I think even if you've bypassed IDL in those first 3 rounds, this could be a guy that could be that rotational guy. Maybe it takes him a little bit to ramp up or what have you, but this could be one of those guys rotationally that could help you out, particularly with the other starting talent on the defensive line that the Bengals have that would be kind of shoulder to shoulder with him.
Yeah, he just fits. I don't want to say he fits exactly what they need because, again, that's maybe giving him a little bit too much praise, but like the prototype of what they're missing at defensive tackle, he's basically that.
Yeah.
Just an all-around great athlete who can just push the pocket, just shoot the gap immediately, and that creates opportunities for guys like Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard to get more sacks than they did last year. Like the absence of Larry Ogunjobi, like that was the main impact of his absence, was that there wasn't enough penetration up the middle, and it was harder to just finish that pressure off the edge against other quarterbacks. So the role for Redmond is immediate. That's the fear when you're just drafting just for a 1-year outlook. Like beyond this year, I don't know how much more Redmond has to develop just because he'll already be 25 next year, but I would be interested to see what kind of impact he can make this year for sure.
I just bring this up. We're going to move on to the next guy in just a second here, but I just bring this up here. I'm doing some quick math. You see the tackle amount, 71 in his career, right? 31.5 of those tackles have gone for a loss of some kind. That's over 44%, almost 45% of his tackles have been tackles for loss, be it sacks or a negative run. And then you look at just last year, 10 of his 23, same thing, about 44% of all of his tackles have gone, or last year were for loss. And so that's a guy where, the overall production, in terms of huge amount of tackles or what have you, isn't there, but he's a guy that, when he makes the play, it's usually a high impact play. And that's where maybe as a rotational guy, it's kind of a pinch hitter that seems to swing for the fence and, every once in a while he'll put one out of the park for you, and more often than not, when he gets his hands on a ball carrier or a quarterback, they're going down for a loss. So intriguing player. And I think, again, if he's there day 3, could be a guy that would bring a lot of value. So we've talked about defense. Now let's have some fun on this one, John. This guy is a highlight machine, and I'm gonna start. I'm gonna still go with what I've been kind of that tell you about height, weight, all that kind of stuff. But when we get to the film, I'm gonna go to a spot that maybe not a lot of people think to talk about because it is an important facet. It is a talking point for the Cincinnati Bengals going forward. Here is Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back of Alabama. This guy is a hell of a fun watch. He's smaller, but he plays bigger than his size quite often. 5'9", 199. He's only 21. He just turned 21. He is a true junior. Lit up the 40-yard dash, 4.36, and you can see that in the tape there. A guy that just runs wild, runs harder than he shows. He plays a little bigger than his size on his film. That's just kind of the theme. So again, a guy that I think a lot of people like. He would be in that conversation late first, early second, or maybe in the second if he slides a little bit further than people think. But not a lot of wear and tear on the tires there. 383 carries in 3 seasons, 151 last year. Split a lot of touches, but was electric. 2,132 rushing yards in his career, 926 last year, 5.6 yards per carry in his career, 6.1 last year, 15 rushing touchdowns in his career, 7 of those last year alone, 103 catches in his career, 44 of those. I believe that was the best in his 3-year college career last year alone. 1,212 receiving yards, 444 of those last year, 8 receiving touchdowns, 3 of those last year. A lot of comparisons here too. And I want to stop here because this is a lot of comparisons to Alvin Kamara. So this, real quick, I'm going to rewind this a second here and we'll bring it back. This is going to be some pass blocking to start off. We'll get to the fun clips in just a minute, but this is, we're going to, and I've slowed these down. Here he is in the backfield. Watch him come off and help out a guy looping around off the edge, puts his shoulder in there, stops him, and then this is a completion for a big gain here. Not a big thing, but, here he is again, off play action. Stymies that guy coming off the edge and allows, I think that's Bryce Young, to make a nice play, nice gain off there. And then here's one more, I believe, where he sees the guy coming in the hole, stands up to him a bit, The problem is the size. That's when it comes to blocking. And then here he is at Georgia Tech before he transferred to Alabama. And this is just a theme. Guys cannot bring this guy down. 5'9", 199, but he plays like he's like 220 a lot of times. And then, oh yeah, by the way, there's the speed. That guy didn't bring him down. He's carrying this guy for a long time. I think this is a touchdown. He spun around, looks like he landed on his feet, but maybe not. And then here you go here. You see him cut back, nice vision, and he is absolutely gone down the sideline. No one's catching him here. So this is him as a runner. What about him as a receiver coming out of the backfield? This angle route is just a money route with him where he goes kind of the outside and just arrows back inside. And then look, just guys cannot bring him down. Look at me, guys. It takes to bring him down. This is a guy who's under 200 pounds, John. And here he is back at Georgia Tech here again. The little angle route across the middle, boom, inside, touchdown. And then he split out wide on this one. He's the wide guy at the bottom of the screen. He comes back to the inside, makes a jumping catch there. Nice play. Play action again, just kind of off to the flat. And here he goes off to the races. Guess what? Missed tackle. Guess what? I mean, it's unbelievable how many guys it takes to bring this guy down. He just plays, like I said, plays way bigger than his size. And here he is, up, missed tackle, bye. And I think there's another missed tackle, yep. And then I think maybe one more there, yeah. So here's the RAS for him, 8.06. A lot of the dings on that come with the height and weight. Not a great vertical jump from him either, but the speed grade is elite. Some people compare him to Alvin Kamara. Some people think he's a little bit like Chris Johnson. Depending how you view him, but a versatile guy, a guy that I think has 3-down potential, may need to add weight, though, to help out as a blocker. You see him, he's willing, he'll put his body in there, but NFL guys are bigger and stronger, may need to add a few pounds if you want him to be a 3-down guy. Explosive and fast, that goes without saying. Plays bigger than his size at times. Tackle breaking machine, and I know that's a criticism of the current starting running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, productive guy, but a guy that a lot of times in the open field just kind of goes down at first contact. Didn't seem to be the case in a lot of stuff I saw with Jahmyr Gibbs. Movable piece on offense. I said he split out wide. You know, you can have him as a receiver in the backfield. You could probably even play him in the slot occasionally if you wanted to do that. He's very young with the high ceiling potentially not even being reached yet. So this is a guy, it may take that number 28 pick if they love this guy. It may take a move up in the second round if they love this guy. There is a lot to love, though, John. Again, Kamara-esque, a little bit of CJ2K out of this guy, speed, vision, and some elements that I think make him a potential 3-down back for the Bengals coming up, or any team who drafts him at the next level.
Yeah, he's another one where I've just struggled with finding the good comp, and this is why I don't really love player comps, because they are very imperfect. I think like Jamal Charles has also been brought up with him.
It's a good one.
And like when I think of Jamal and Chris Johnson and even Kamara for that matter, they were all so balanced and they were just so smooth as a glide. They just glided across the field, right? They just accelerated in ways that we've never seen before. I don't think he's quite at that level, but I think the Kamara one is the most interesting to me just because the journey is interesting, because Kamara started at Alabama and then he went to Tennessee because he never got the opportunity at Alabama, and he still never really like took hold of like a huge role at Tennessee, which is why he ended up falling to the third round. The fact that Gibbs ended up going to Alabama and then leading the team in both rushing and receiving, like it, not all Alabama playmakers who are really hyped up actually produce at a high level, but he did. He was like 91st percentile in like total offensive yardage market share for running backs. And again, at Alabama, like that's meaningful because oftentimes guys at big programs, they get overhyped without actually producing at that level, but he did, which is why I think he belongs in the first round conversation. The athleticism comparisons in general, I struggle with, because I know he's a great athlete, but I feel like he's almost one of one to me. Like I can't really like find a clear, like this guy is this guy, and I definitely don't want to put like Jamal Charles next to his name just because Jamal Charles is the most special running back who never gets talked about nowadays, and I don't think he's quite that smooth of an athlete. But I do want to say though, because people will look at his size and think he can't run between the tackles. I think that's an underrated part of his game. I think he was fine, going between the tackles, and I think his vision is also really good for what it is, for him being 21 years old, only 393, I want to say, career carries or something around that range. So people look at the workload as a negative, as an inexperience. No, like, he's just scratching the surface of what he can be, and the fact that he's really young, the fact that he doesn't come in with a ton of wear and tear on his body, it's only positives to me. But the Alvin Kamara one, going back to that, like, the main value for Kamara for me was just him being a receiver. And so many times this year when the Bengals have dealt with defenses just capping their vertical offense, right? And they've had to go down to the check down range. They've had to go to the angle routes, the flat routes with these running backs and tight ends. And sometimes it just didn't work out. They were still ending up in second and long and third and long situations. Gibbs is just a breaker of that, right? He'll take a 2-yard pass and turn it into 20 yards. So he will turn these second and long, third and long situations to second and manageable, or just convert the chains and move the chains on first down anyways. So that just keeps the offense on schedule for this year, for next year, the year after that. I think Gibbs will see the value of his rookie contract. What do you do with him beyond that? Like, that's just an unknown just because he is a running back. But he solves a big problem with this offense, and it helps the offense get out of the situations that they did want to be in last year, and it just forces the defense to adjust and gives opportunities for Chase, for Higgins to really take advantages of other coverages now that they have to account for Gibbs in the backfield.
This may be an unpopular opinion, what I'm going to say, because obviously you use either a first-round pick, a second-round pick on this guy. He's the presumed starter, especially with the price tag and other things that are happening with Joe Mixon right now. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, the Bengals have approached Joe Mixon about a pay cut, a restructure, whatever you want to call that, and it lessens the cap hit, it lessens the money there, and then you draft this kid this year, so you have Joe Mixon still with you, and you bring this kid in the fold. Right away, you kind of had the two hammers with Mixon and Pirine last year, and this is a little bit more thunder and lightning if you did keep Mixon in the fold here. So you'd have that 4.36 speed with the size and strength of Joe Mixon as well. But this kid also, even if you really want to get creative and go almost Reggie Bush style with this thing, this kid returned kicks as a freshman at Georgia Tech too. So, I mean, this, if you're looking at kick return, solutions, it's not ideal to say, hey, our first round pick or second round pick, he's going to be returning kicks for it. Well, if he's a heavy rotational running back to spell, and you've got kind of the thunder and lightning approach at the running back spot, he can occasionally do kind of maybe the Adam Jones thing on kickoff returns, provide some spark there. Why the hell not? I mean, it's you get your most electric players on the field and you get the ball in their hands. And I'm going to tell you, John, if you have, I know there's all the talk about offensive linemen and beefing up the trenches. I'm all about that. The Bengals have done a great job of that the past couple of off seasons. I'm going to tell you, man, you got Chase, you got Higgins, even if you keep Mixon, if you have, a new tight end in there, Irv Smith as well. And then of course you have, you bring in Gibbs. Think about the team speed. Think about all of the scary elements that an opposing defense would have to face with all of those weapons on one side of the ball.
I mean, we've talked about it. Like, running back and tight end became issues with the team as the season wore on, where they just didn't have enough athleticism and explosion and space to take advantage of all the cushion that defenses were giving. Like, Hayden Hurst was fine, just Samaje Perine was fine, but they weren't striking fear in the hearts of any linebackers who were trying to pursue them from the outside. Like, yeah, of course, Hayden Hurst and Perine could break a couple tackles, but Jahmyr Gibbs just outruns any pursuit angle that you give him, and I think that will translate in the NFL. So he solves an immediate issue here. It just comes back to, what does the board have to look like for them to consider Gibbs at the end of the first round? Because I think we're both in agreement that if enough players at the targeted premium positions are off the board and you're basically reaching at that point and Gibbs is staring at you in the face, 28 I think is fine to actually make this investment, not only because of the circumstances of what the board looks like, but because of the value that he gives you in the receiving game, and that value will persist for the next 4 to 5 years while you have him under contract. And when you have to make the decision about what to do with him in the second contract, you make that decision in the future. But I think it's fine to take a guy like Gibbs because of how talented he is, because we know he's going to be a good player, because he did it in college. Like, you're not coming in here with production questions or athleticism questions or wear and tear questions. I think late first is fine to take him so that there's no other obvious options on the board remaining.
Well, those are the two profiles, one offense, one defense that we have for you this week. One, a kind of a later round, a mid-round guy that could be sneaky effective, and one guy that may hear his name called on the first night, potentially early on the second night. We'll see. Both guys have to be intriguing. And, oh, by the way, both guys from major big school programs with the Bengals usually like out of most of their draft picks as well, because they like that high level of competition and seeing production out of guys against high levels of competition. So keep those guys in mind, Jalen Redmond and Jahmyr Gibbs, as next week rolls on. We are going to get to a mock draft. John, you have a simulator you can share with us, and we'll go with that. How many rounds do you want to do today? You want to do like 3, 4, 7? What are we thinking?
So I think we did 4 the last time, because this isn't going to be our last time. I think 4 again is fine. We'll go quickly though. We'll go quickly.
Yeah, we'll go 4, and then maybe for our final we'll do 7. So we full screen this for you here. Wait, which one is this through?
This is the PFF again.
PFF. Okay.
Yeah. So sliders. Yeah, this is fine. So let's just get into it. So we got some quarterbacks going off the board quickly. No real surprises that I'm seeing. I think Bijan Robinson went to the Steelers, maybe? Yeah, Bijan Robinson's a Steeler. Michael Mayer is a Detroit Lion. Miles Murphy, potential Bengals target, went to the Ravens. Dalton Kincaid went to the Jags. Emmanuel Forbes went to the Cowboys. Kalijah Cansey went to the Bills. Wow, that's a lot of potential Bengals targets that are off the board.
Yeah.
Darnell Wright to the Patriots. So as far as players who are still available, I think we can all agree that the players that we just mentioned would all be in the Bengals' interest. I think if one of the tight ends are there, that they're probably the pick. If Emmanuel Forbes is there, he's definitely in the conversation. Kalijah Cansey's the wild card. So among who's left, we got Joey Porter Jr., who rarely, I think, makes it this far in any simulator. Brian Bresee, who I think is a dark horse target for the Bengals. Anton Harrison is the best.
Didn't they meet with him, Bresee? Didn't they?
They did. So they met with him at the combine, and then they coached his workout at his pro day. I think Aaron Hobby was down there with his alma mater. So yeah, I think. Oh, and then I think Cam Smith deserves a shout out here. I think he's probably going to go, if not late first, early second. And I think the Bengals would they also coached his pro day too. So those are probably the names that we're looking at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to, if you want to play the matching game and all that kind of stuff, usually a couple of visits or vested interest, like you've seen there with Bresee, where there's smoke, there's fire. But I think, can you imagine what Joey Porter Sr. would do if his son was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals? He would go
it's tempting.
Ballistic. I would actually, I'm almost of the mindset. I think Bresee makes a lot of sense because you're connecting a lot of dots there. But and I love my guy Jordan Addison, but not a need for the Bengals there. I think it would be hard for them if Joey Porter Jr. is sitting there for them to say no. They love those first round corners. They haven't drafted a defensive lineman since Justin Smith, right? In the first round. So maybe they buck the trend here if they really like Bresee, but I would foresee either a Joey Porter or the kid from South Carolina you mentioned there down below. That may be Cam Smith. Those may be the guys that I would probably point to.
Yeah, I think if Porter's here, he's just kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. I don't know if he's worth a top 16 pick, because I think there are production questions, but just the build, he's literally just Joey Porter as a cornerback, and that's really tempting. It's really hard to turn down at that point. He's got the length, he's got the athleticism, he's got the dog in him, if you will. I think if the board just falls, they're like, oh, I guess we'll just take Joey Porter if he's here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. I don't expect that to happen, but that's why you just run these simulators. You never know how the board's going to fall to you and which positions are going to run off like that.
Well, there's one name right now, as you see who's here.
Yeah.
There's one name that's just staring me right in the face, and that's there's another one down below there that's also intriguing. So I'm looking right away when you look at Sam Laporta is one, and Charbonnet is the other. You look at what's left at tight end though, man. Beyond Schoonmaker, that's way too high in the set. So, this may be the time. There looks like there was probably a run on tight ends there towards the end of the first and into where the Bengals are picking in the second here. So you may, if you're the Bengals, you don't want to do a desperation grab, but Laporta's got a really cool profile. He may be a guy that, if there's not a lot of tight ends or, there's a big drop between the next tight end behind him, that may be where they go and they say, hey, we can get still a solid running back in the third round, the fourth round.
I think Laporta is he's almost like the Jahmyr Gibbs of tight ends in this class, just because he brings almost the same value as a receiver. Like, he can just take the short passes and just turn it into 20, 30 yards. He was just a man among boys at Iowa, and I think they would value that. Even if he's not the complete tight end that a Michael Mayer is, or maybe a few others in this class are, to have that athleticism and that upside just staring at you in the face at 60, like I really don't think he's going to be here. I think teams love him a lot more than maybe the consensus does. And if he wasn't there, I think Charbonnet would probably be the favorite to be the pick here. But if Sam Laporta's here, like, he's just staring at us in the face, like, are you not going to pick me?
Right. That's kind of my pick right there.
Yeah. So let's go with him. This is looking pretty solid so far, though, I will say. Okay, so no obvious fall. Like, I don't know why PFF loves Stanford quarterback or Tanner McKee, but they do. And his teammate Michael Wilson, who's a wide receiver. But as we're looking here, I'm seeing a lot of defensive linemen. Like, you had Carl Brooks, who's a high upside guy from Bowling Green. Isaiah McGuire from Missouri is probably one of the 10, I would say, that fits the mold of like a Louis Anarumo defensive end in this class. Let's look at running backs as well, because we haven't addressed that position yet. Okay, so we got interesting options here. What do you think about Rashawn Johnson as like a third round pick? Because he's still ranked, I think, in the consensus as a fourth, but it seems to be a lot of momentum about him potentially pushing day 2 status.
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch more of that guy, quite honestly. And unfortunately for him, his teammates getting all the run. So, he just gets lost in the shuffle, but he's got skills. It may be you're talking back end of the third here, so it maybe not as big of a reach. At that point, if you really like him, you would probably look at that. But what's going on at offensive tackle or defensive
Let's check
tackle?
It out.
Anything?
So we got Blake Freeland is like the third round is where is like where people project him to go. But again, like, that type of athlete typically doesn't last so long in the draft. So I think that's a definite conversation to have at the end of the third. I'm not seeing, like, I think Moro Ojomo is pretty good, the defensive tackle from Texas, but I don't love him here. I don't see, like, okay, we can go to edge too. Like, Isaiah McGuire would probably be the guy that I would go with at edge here, but again, like, I'm not married to that, so I think Freeland though does present a lot of value here for sure.
Yeah, I would probably, Freeland's probably sticking out to me the most here, and then maybe you grab your running back in the next round based on that group of pretty recognizable and productive names that were still left on the board.
Yeah, and I think with the Bengals, that they're probably looking to get a running back like as soon as the second round and maybe the third. But if that run doesn't happen, which it probably hasn't happened yet in this scenario, like Tank Bigsby just went off the board, but other than that, there's still a lot of quality names. I think they might be comfortable enough to just wait for the fourth. So you want to go Blake Freeland here?
Yeah.
All right. All right, our final pick, we got Sean Tucker as the best running back. Ivan Pace Jr., who has now met with the Bengals twice. It's hard to not recognize him as a possible target for them. But yeah, so we had some running backs go off the board at that point.
Yeah.
Sean Tucker is still available. Deuce Vaughn, Mighty Mouse, is available from Kansas State. Chase Brown, the guy who I think ran the ball, 700 times in college, but was incredibly productive and athletic. Keaton Mitchell, who also I think met with the Bengals, is still available. And Eric Gray, who seems like a good scheme fit in Oklahoma running backs. Something.
Yeah,
to be said
and
about that with
Izzy,
the Bengals.
Izzy's there too. Izzy's just all over the board.
I don't know what people think of him, because he on paper he looks like a stud, and then you just watch him a little bit more and you can understand some of the questions about how he takes on contact and everything, but I have no idea where he's going to go.
I don't either. So I mean, yeah, I think a couple of those guys intrigue me. Vaughn, Keaton Mitchell, Eric Gray, and even Izzy a little bit there. The value doesn't seem to be there for Israel Abanaconda, but and then edge, was there? I think there was someone from was it Clemson? KJ Henry, yeah.
I don't mind either Jose Ramirez or Yusir Abdullah, but I'm not like too over the moon with that. Let's just see who would be the best available at this point. Like your guy Voorhees from USC.
Yeah, but that's going to be a redshirt year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Pace is interesting. They met with him.
Mm-hmm. It would be Davis Allen's still here. I think Davis Allen's a clear target for them in this point, but if they already took Laporta, I don't really see it at this point.
Right.
It would be weird to not take a running back, but I don't think there's an obvious running back pick here. I think we just kind of assume that we would take one in like rounds 5 and 6, and we would just kind of be married to Joe Mixon or sign Ezekiel Elliott at this point,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Like I think trying to connect the dots as much as possible, like Pace makes a lot of sense because he just met with them twice, and I think he's a really good player. But other than that, I don't know, man. It doesn't. We got lucky.
I like Voorhees. But I don't know if I'm in 4th round for just a complete redshirt year. If he's there, middle of day 3, then I'm like, hey, you pull the trigger there. But you're not getting anything out of him this year. Not that you maybe need him, but that would be a guy that you would hope. Granted, I think a lot of people like what Volson brought to the table last year, but this could be a guy that you would think maybe comes in and competes or really beefs up the offensive line. But he's not going to be doing much of anything next year. So good player though.
Yeah, I think the argument with Pace here is that yes, he's listed as a linebacker, but I think Lou can do a lot of things with him.
He can get after the quarterback. Yeah,
and I don't know. I feel like
I like that pick.
Just with the way the board is, I feel like he probably makes the most sense here. So I
like that pick.
We're gonna finish with him.
Yep.
Let's see what they grade us.
Kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone with that pick a little bit,
Yeah. I mean, he's a Bearcat. I'm never gonna complain about a Bearcat. So we got an A. Look at that.
Yeah. I like that. Laporta, free. Oh man, I want Porter just for his dad to have a freak out. I would love that. Yeah.
He would probably wear an NFL hat if he went to a Bengals game.
Oh, he probably just wears Steeler stuff, honestly.
Well,
yeah. That's funny. But yeah, not a bad haul there. I like that.
No.
I like that. Not a bad haul for 4 picks, and then we'll finish up next week. Again, cornerback Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State, and it was Sam Laporta out of Iowa, tight end. Blake Freeland, the tackle out of BYU, and Ivan Pace, the linebacker, edge rusher, versatile guy out of Cincinnati. So we had a couple profiles. We did a mock draft, and we are going to get out of here for a little bit of an abbreviated episode. We're going to drop the mic and get out of here. John, what do you got for us, my friend?
I got nothing, dude. Everyone is unverified on Twitter except you, man. I think you're one of the few blue checks left out there.
Yeah, I guess. I don't really pay attention to it. Yeah. So I guess a lot of people are they bailing on that? Is that the deal?
No, like
are they getting bailed on? Oh, he took him away.
Just took it away. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I saw Tyler Boyd like in James Rapine's mentions. I didn't even know it was him. I thought he was just a fan. And then Rapine quote tweeted. I'm like, who the hell is he talking? Oh my God, it's Tyler Boyd. I forgot.
Yeah, I guess I gotta watch out. I don't know. Maybe I'm one of the last dominoes to fall. I don't have all that much really because I spent a lot of time with those profiles, but those are two players that, I really, I know he's not going to be probably a star in the NFL. I know I unfairly compared him to Geno Atkins, just again because of the profile and the combine workout and all that kind of stuff. But really, I've come to like Jalen Redmond as a value pick. Now, granted, if you're talking third round or something like that, that may be a little high. But seriously, if you're at the back of round 4, if he's there in round 5, that could be a guy that you bring in and just kind of slowly ease him into the lineup and get him to be a rotational guy. And I don't know. As I watched him, I came to like him a lot. There's some concerns I have, but I came to like him a lot.
Yeah, again, for a development guy, if you just want to have him round out the defensive line room and have a clear role for him this year, which I think it would be, I just hope he stays healthy, man. I hope all of his health issues just stay out of his way for his entire NFL career, because I think there's a lot to like there in upside.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, do all this stuff. Keep it to Cincy Jungle for all of your news, opinions, analysis, and your podcast. Keep it to the Orange and Black Insider, our YouTube channel, for all kinds of different stuff we'll be bringing you throughout this week, next week, and beyond. And, of course, go check out John and his written work over at A2ZSports.com as well. John, have a good rest of your week, man. Maybe we'll come back tomorrow for some listener questions or something if you've got some time.
Perhaps, but until then, happy holidays.
All right, we'll make it a surprise for everybody. You never know with us, our schedules are always wacky. We'll see, but we'll see you soon regardless. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you.